I hope everybody enjoyed your lab, and I hope that you were able to make some profit from your cookie mining and not just lose money. Now we're going to move on to urbanization. So the whole point of this section of the unit is to learn about the resources that we're using, how we're using them. I call this the land use unit. And one of the ways that we use land is in order to create what we call urbanization. Now, if you already know what urbanization is, you don't need to write anything down, but if you don't, then just make sure you know it. Urbanization is basically creating an urban area. It's when a lot of people are moving into one place, and an urban area is a city. So with urban areas, they are simply referring to cities. Now, cities have a very high pollution rate. So if they have such a high pollution rate and they are so dirty, then why is it that people are wanting to move there in the first place? Well, that's one of the things that we are going to look at. So some of these opportunities are going to be for education. A lot of times, cities are going to have more education opportunities than other places. Think about the early college that you're at. A lot of rural areas are not going to have that. People also move there for things such as healthcare, medical services. So we have Vidant Hospital, which is really, really good. Well, in this little town I grew up in, if you had to go to the hospital, we had a local one, but you pretty much only went there if it was something minor. If anything was serious, you wanted to get moved to the city, which was Greensboro, in order to go to Moses Cone. So people will go to the cities for those good medical services. Also, entertainment. There's typically more to do. You have movie theaters, you have malls, whatnot, and then you have social service programs. When we talk about social service programs, these are going to be programs that are really going to be geared to help with people who are lower income. So you've got like subsidized living, you have soup kitchens, you have all sorts of programs that can help out with people who are poor or homeless. If you live in the country and they don't have those, then if you're poor or homeless, then it's just a lot harder to get some of that help, especially if you don't have a car. So a lot of people will stay close by in order to have those programs. So those are the opportunities of the why people are moving into urban areas. It's always good just to have a general idea of these things, so it wouldn't hurt to jot them down if you haven't already. But why do people move to cities? For opportunities, and then you could just put an example or so. So that is urbanization. If you didn't write down everything, that's fine. But what an urban area is a city. And then all you have to put is why do people move there? And then an example. Education, which you can just do EDU. You could put healthcare or something. Entertainment, probably already self-evident. Remember, think about it. If you're taking a multiple choice test, you can figure it out. Okay, let's move on to the more important things. Effects of urbanization. So as we urbanize all these areas, because we have more and more people, how is that affecting the areas around us? Well, with more people, we need more land. Why do we need more land? Well, we need more land in order to build more homes, and we need more land to build industry, so that way people have jobs. So how do we make room for these? Well, typically, if you want to build a house or you want to build an industry, first thing you got to do is cut down all the trees. So deforestation, and just write the bolded parts. Deforestation is removing trees. That's all it is. D as in getting rid of it, forest as in trees, deforestation. You're removing the trees. There's two ways that we do deforestation. One way is clear cutting, and one way is selective cutting. I'm going to talk about this on the next slide as well, the difference between the two. Cleared areas, so if you're doing clear cutting, they have more erosion and it destroys habitats. So this is for clear cutting. Clear cutting will have more erosion and it destroys habitats. Why does it have more erosion? Well, it was the roots of the tree that were keeping everything, all the soil there in the first place. So now that you've gotten rid of all the trees, you've gotten rid of all the roots, and so you're going to be prone to more erosion. It destroys habitats because you've gotten rid of all the trees. Think about if you're a little squirrel and you're living in that tree. If you are a squirrel living in that tree and then I chop it down, you're not going to have a home. So here's our little squirrel There's his hands. That's his tail. So if you cut down the tree, you've gotten rid of poor little squirrel's home, and now he's sad. That's a frown face. So poor little squirrel has lost his habitat. So that's one reason why deforestation, especially clear cutting, can be very bad. So clear cutting is bad. Replanting trees helps, but it's not enough. Think about, I have a tree in my backyard that's probably about my height and probably the width of like 3 pencils put together. Very, very small little tree. And yet that tree is 4 to 5 years old. So that is going to be forever until that tree is a decent enough tree to cut down to actually use for anything. So you can plant trees, but it's going to be 50, 40 years before they become anything significant. So it's helpful, but it's not going to be fast enough because we cut them down at a faster rate than what we can plant them. So let's look at clear cutting. Clear cutting, both of them, but clear cutting is when you remove all the trees in the area. And we already talked about how that leads to more erosion and that leads to habitat loss. Selective cutting is going to be the better option. So we like selective cutting if we can ever choose, because selective cutting is going to take down some trees, but not all, kind of like in this picture. So some of the trees are gone, but not all of the trees are gone. That way you still have habitats, so the little squirrel is happy, but you also have some of the timber that you needed. So this is better. You've not removed all the biodiversity. You have less erosion. You have less habitat loss. It's just going to be a little bit more challenging for the person cutting it and takes more effort, but it's well worth it in the end. So clear cutting removes all of them, completely clears out the field, while selective cutting selects some trees to remove, but not all the trees. So I will pause and let y'all finish writing if you haven't already. We can draw a happy squirrel and see he's nice and fat because he had a lot of acorns because you didn't cut down all his trees. So this happy squirrel lived in the selective cutting area. Okay, I feel like you should have it written down. So I'm going to say, everybody say, bye squirrel, and then we will move on. So with more people, aka growing population, and yes, you can write this or do write this. So with more people, we are clearing more land. Because we are clearing more land, we are using more timber, or we are also using more timber, and we are increasing our carbon dioxide output. So think about this. You have more and more people because the population is growing like crazy. Because you have a higher population, you need to clear out more land so they can live and have places to work. In order to create places for them to live and work, that means you need more timber, aka you need more wood from trees. And because you have more people, you're now using more energy, which is why we're increasing our carbon dioxide output. Now, what is it that trees remove from the atmosphere? They remove carbon dioxide and they replace it with oxygen. So this is why it doesn't add up. And this is how I feel some of you probably look in math class at times. No matter how many calculators you have, sometimes things just don't add up. So anyway, you have more and more CO2, less trees. We need more oxygen. We need more trees. So it doesn't work out well. So here is the rate of deforestation in billions, and you can think about acres basically. So, and then our population. So deforestation is occurring faster than our population is growing. Towards the end, you can see that we've started to change some of that. A part of that is because we have more electronic sources, so we don't have to print as much paper, which is always going to be helpful, anything that you can do with that. But we just have to be mindful as we have more people and we use more of the resources that we're also trying to protect or replace the resources and not wasting what we're using. Okay, let's keep going. This is just a picture. These are what we call virgin forests, meaning forests that had never had deforestation occur. And you can see as the decades went by, there's pretty much no forest that we haven't had to cut trees down from. This is not saying there's no trees left in the country. This is just saying there's no original forest left, pretty much. And we're not doing that. Okay, so more people also means more habitat fragmentation from urbanization. So as we increase our populations, we start getting more habitat fragmentation. And again, all that fragmentation is means that you're breaking the habitats up into little fragments, aka little sections. So we have this picture over here from 1949 where the habitat's just one giant area. Then you go to 1964 and you start to see the streets that people are building in some of the neighborhoods. And as they're doing that, you're starting to break up the habitats a little bit. And then here, even more by 82, and then by 1991, you're seeing less and less and less green, and the habitat's super broken up. So if you are a deer and you live over here and you're trying to get to the other side of your habitat, there's a very good chance you're going to get hit by a car or something's going to happen to you along your journey because people have fragmentized up your habitat so much. So that's one effect. Another effect is more acid rain. So more acid rain. Write that down. So another effect is going to be more and more acid rain. We've talked about acid rain, which is what type of weathering? Chemical. It's chemical weathering. So we have the statue, and you can see the face is distorted because the acid has melted off part of the stone. But also with these trees right here, depending how acidic the rain is and how just the amount of time that this is occurring, it can start to kill the trees and the plant life, which is going to mess up your habitats and all sorts of stuff like that. So these trees, they didn't just melt from one rain. It would be consistent acidic rain over time. And I wanted to include the pH scale up here to give you a general idea of how acidic things are. So hydrochloric acid is going to be super, super, super acidic. That's what we call a 0 on the pH scale. Now that will melt through your skin. A lemon, however, is a 2. So an apple is about a 3. A banana is about a 5. So when you're looking at your pH scale, we do have a lot of things that are acidic. But just because something's an acid doesn't mean that it's a strong acid. It has to be way over here to be a super strong acid. The opposite of that is going to be base. So we call that basic. So baking soda and like drain cleaner is going to be an example of a strong base. And then soap. Soap is all basic as well. So there's your pH scale and a little bit about acid rain. And that's all for the notes that we're going to do today. We will pick this back up tomorrow, but that way you won't have quite as much to do. Have a lovely and wonderful day.